Just FYI, if I seem like I'm having an unpleasant time in this video, it's because I have a horrible toothache and no dental, so I'm going to have it for a while. I'm super excited about that. Anyway, moving on. That said, RWBY Volume 4, Episode 2, Remembrance. This episode doesn't pull any punches. It was set up at the very, very end of the last episode that we were going to get some time with Weiss in this episode, and we did. It actually starts out with Weiss in her family mansion, and we actually do get to meet some members of her family properly. First, her brother, whose name I just do not remember. And I don't trust this kid at all. He just comes off as the snaky, slippery manipulator type, and while he doesn't seem outright malicious, he doesn't seem trustworthy either, and that has me a little concerned. But he does seem to keep tabs on literally everybody who's in the house at the time, which not only serves the plot by indicating where Weiss should progress to next, but also gives us a bit of a impression that Weiss's home is a little more broken than we even realized, because it seems like her mom might be a day drinker, which is kind of disturbing. It's also pretty clear that the kid doesn't like either one of his sisters. And what's really interesting is right after we get this big hint that every member of this family holds contempt for basically every other member of this family, it pans up to this family portrait where clearly no one is happy to be there. It really does look like the only two members of this family who can stand each other are Weiss and Winter. And I'm actually going to do this a little bit out of order and talk about all of Weiss's stuff first and then move on to the rest. Anyway, Weiss heard from her brother that their father is in his study talking to some man, he doesn't know who, and that man does seem interested in speaking to Weiss, so Weiss goes to her father's study, and it's General Ironwood discussing with her father an embargo that he's put on the company. The kingdoms are on the brink of war, and Weiss's family company sells dust, a very potent, powerful weapon that, in the wrong hands, could only escalate the conflict. It makes perfect sense to put an embargo on sales, but Weiss's father, whose name I also don't remember, is just selfishly thinking of his bottom line. He knows the truth of what happened at Beacon, that Atlas wasn't actually responsible, but the majority of the world doesn't. He needs to remember that, but he doesn't seem concerned with even trying. So he basically tells Ironwood off. Ironwood leaves after offering Weiss a place at Atlas Academy, which is obviously what he wanted to talk to her about. And can we just point out for a second how much a wreck Ironwood looks in this scene? Clearly he has been stressing out like crazy. But anyway, moving on from that, Weiss is basically being forced by her father to take part in some charity concert, to perform in this charity concert that I guess he expects to build sympathy for the company so that the public will side with the company against the embargo. I'm not really sure. And she's clearly not happy about it, but feels obligated, I guess, to do what her father says. And it's just so obvious that he doesn't care about her feelings, that he only cares about what's best for him. And I hate people like that. But just when we're kind of getting the sense that Weiss is in a place where she has absolutely no friends, absolutely no one that she can talk to and be genuine with, she leaves her father's study and runs into the butler. I think his name was Clyde. And I really like the guy, but there's clearly something odd about him. I'm just going to say his eyes. I'm not going to tell you exactly what his eyes did. Maybe you'll notice it a little bit up here. But it was a little odd and made me wonder if perhaps he's not quite what he seems. But in a testament to how well this show frames character development, while the brother earlier seemed mostly harmless, mostly amicable, and just a bit odd, and yet I didn't trust him at all, Clyde, because of this eye thing, seems genuinely suspicious, and yet I trust him so much more. Just the way that the dialogue was written and directed and performed made all the difference. I'm expecting we'll get to meet Weiss's mom eventually, and at some point hopefully get to see some interactions between more members of the family than just Weiss and individual members of the family. The Schnee family is definitely intriguing because I know absolutely nothing about them. Weiss was always so close-lipped about her family, we never even got hints to what kind of people they might be, other than that they're very formal and that they are very determined to remain as formal as they are. It's a matter of pride to them, a matter of tradition. But that's really all we know, and we only get small snippets here. It's definitely going to be interesting seeing where Weiss's story goes in this volume, because I honestly have no idea where it's going to go. And the rest of the episode is just as interesting. And this is where my previous statement that the episode refuses to pull punches comes in, because unlike what I predicted last week, we don't get more with the villains this episode, we actually get more with RWBY and her group. They are coming upon a town, apparently it's a town that John has visited before with his family, and they're looking forward to having some downtime there to, I guess, just resupply and, not be walking in the woods. And John is very clearly looking forward to visiting this place that he visited as a child. And then the entire town is burned to the ground. It's in ruins. Something has happened. There are no visible survivors, except for one huntsman who's gravely injured. Not only is RWBY too late to save people again, after being too late to save Penny, after being too late to save Pyrrha, but the huntsman dies in front of them, acting as a grim reminder that sometimes you can't save everybody, which just drudges up the whole Pyrrha thing again. Which actually ties into the final scene of this episode, which I'm not going to spoil for you. I know I've spoiled a lot in this review. I'm not going to spoil this last scene because it's that good. But basically, we get to see a little bit more about how Jean is dealing with Pyrrha's loss. And we're reminded once again that Pyrrha, even though she died, is still an inspiration to these people. Pyrrha and the kind of person she was is an inspiration, which just adds to the mixed feelings that they're feeling. However, I think that this RWBY plot, this plot with RWBY and her group, should have been moved to a different episode. We should have seen something of Yang or Blake in this episode. Because again, unlike what I predicted in the last review, the episodes do seem to be going back to their typical 15-minute episode format, which has really got me bummed out. And the fact that so much more seems to be written about RWBY and her group, which, fine, more should be written about them. There's more people there, but so much more seems to be written for that group. It's got me worried that the other girls aren't going to get as much attention as they deserve. Yang and Blake's story in this season should be just as important as RWBY's. Should be just as important as Jean's, unless they're going a specific direction with Jean's character that I'll get into later. I'm not going to get into it now. I just really hope that this volume doesn't end with me feeling like those stories were underdeveloped. And the story of RWBY and her group could have fit into a later episode. There would have been no problem relocating it, except for one thing, a little bit of world building where at the ruined town they find a symbol carved into the ground, and Ren and Nora seem to recognize it. At least they look like they recognize it. I'm not really sure. Maybe that's world building that's going to be important in the next few upcoming episodes and they needed a way to fit it in here, but I honestly don't know. It just, unfortunately, feels a little unsatisfying. To me, maybe it's different for you, but to me, I would have liked to have seen Blake and Yang in this episode with Weiss instead of going back to RWBY right away. Also, unfortunately, Velvet, again, does not appear in this episode. I do want to be clear, I did like this episode. I would have written it differently myself. I would have structured this volume differently myself, based on what I can glean from it so far, but that doesn't mean I didn't like the episode. It's still a really good episode, and that final scene is just so heart-wrenching. It's just so good. But as usual, guys, I'd like to know, what did you think of this episode? Let's get a discussion going in the comment section down below. Either way, this has been AJ22, and I will talk to you guys later.